Travel around Edmonton and you'll see a lot of things named after Frank Oliver. He gets a pool, and a school, and a park, and a neighborhood. There's a plaque of Frank Oliver in front of the Hotel Macdonald, and at Fort Edmonton Park we've recreated his newspaper, the Edmonton Bulletin, and honored him there too. So you may wonder, why are so many things named after Frank Oliver? Well, he was one of Edmonton's earliest pioneers. He was the founder of Edmonton's first newspaper, the Edmonton Bulletin. He served in the federal cabinet. He fought hard for Edmonton to be the capital city and not, Calgary. And he made sure that we got bison in Elk Island National Park. In fact, he was one of the founders of the whole national park system. Here's the problem with giving quite this much honor to Frank Oliver, though. He was, to put it bluntly, a racist. He thought Ukrainians and Poles were like a millstone around the necks of Canadians. He compared Chinese immigrants to pigs. He said Japanese immigrants had no part of our civilization, whoever our is. He tried to ban all immigration by those of the Negro race to Canada, and I'm pretty sure he wasn't too crazy about Jews either. If he'd had his way as Minister of the Interior, my grandparents never would have been allowed to come here. But he was particularly noxious in his racist attitude towards First Nations and Métis people, and that involved a giant land swindle in which he basically passed legislation which allowed governments to force First Nations people who lived near cities and towns off their reserves, and then he and his cronies divvied up the land and sold it for a profit. So he wasn't just a racist, he was also a reprobate. The question is, all these years later, should we now take his name off his monuments? And in this column, I argue, no, we shouldn't, because I think that whitewashes our history. I think if we pretend that we weren't a racist society in the past, it allows us to pretend that we're all noble and sanctified, and it was only in the bad old days that people had these bad views. I think it's much more important that we remember Frank Oliver for the good he did and also for the bad that he did, and then have an important community conversation about how we want to build a modern multicultural country on the racist matrix he left us.